Hey guys, welcome to Off-Grid Minis. So, last week we painted up another one of our Ard boys. He turned out fairly decently, getting a bit better at the contrast, figuring things out a little bit. But this week I painted up another one of the Khorne Bloodletters. So, unfortunately, I painted this one while last week's video was processing, so I don't have the white version or the pre-painted model for the intro again this week, but he basically looks a little bit like that. He's one of the generic ones, so he's going to be almost the same as all these guys, just a little bit different arm position and face and stuff like that. But yeah, for tools for this week, I got my brushes, of course, my makeshift palette, my water for cleaning the brushes, my cloth that I use, and of course my paints. This one was number 19, so that's another one off the list, and that's just another number that if we roll, we'll have to re-roll for next week's. For paints this week, I got both my reds, the Khorne Red and Mephiston Red. I have Abaddon Black I'm using for his horns and the handle and handguard of his sword. And then Retributor Armor I used for the pommel and the blade of his sword. Then my shades, I used Nuln Oil on the black areas, Seraphim Sepia on the sword, and then Karaberg Crimson all over the red areas. As well, I used a tiny bit of the Drakenhof Nightshade on the pommel just to give it a slight blue or silver hint. Don't know where hinge came from. But then I have my layers. I used Administratum Grey just on his horns and a tiny bit on the handguard of his sword. Rakarth Flesh I used over Khorne Red for his tongue. And then I also used the Drakenhof Nightshade on that to make it more purple and darken it a little bit. Then I used Wild Rider Red just for the highlights all over himself, like the ridges on his back and the bumps all over. And then White Scar I used just for the dots in his eyes. Necron Compound I used on the edge and pommel of the sword just to give it a more brass silver look, or an aged brass look. And then lastly, for the base, I used the Armageddon Dust to give it that gritty texture. Then I covered that with Rhinox Hide to make it more of a dark, kind of hellish landscape. And then I dry brushed that with a bit of the Khorne Red to give it the red highlights to make it more hellish. So that's all for this week. It's fairly simple, fairly quick again, and I hope you guys enjoy. I'll catch you on the flip side. it's the episode for this week. We got an alright model there. It didn't turn out quite as good as my first Khorne Bloodletter. Just the edging kept, my layer brush kept catching and just causing blotches of the Wild Rider red all over. But all in all, it didn't turn out too badly. I'd be happy to use that one in my battles. So, yeah, I'll keep going with that and just continue to learn for the next time I do one of those guys. But now it's time to figure out what we're going to be painting next week. So you know the drill by now. I have 2 dice. I have 21 models left now. I have a D6 and a D20. So I have my list here. If I roll any of the ones I've rolled before, I'll just re-roll the dice again. But also, if I get a 1 on both dice, then I will re-roll the D6, and if it's a 3 or below, then the result is 1. And if the result is 4 or above, then it's 2. So that's how I figure that out. And I just add the result of the 2 dice together, and that gives me 1 to 26. Because I started with 26 models that were numbered. And we got a 2 and a 1, so model number 3. And just give me a second to search through and try and find this guy. I think that's 5. This one is 3. So, we're going to get our first Castigator. And this is actually the Castigator Prime. He is the leader of the pack, and he's carrying his helmet. He's the only one of these guys with the kind of crossbow-looking thing that has his actual face showing that I'm going to get to use the flesh color on. So that should be pretty awesome. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, because this is my first one of these guys, but I'm going to get it looking as best as I can for you guys. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you have enjoyed watching this week. As always, stay classy. I'll see you next time.